And welcome back here on FestiVITA for our Year Abroad series, where we are discovering what students have experienced during their year abroad. We've just had Naomi, who's been telling us all about her year abroad in Madrid at the University. And today we have Oakley, who's also been in Madrid, but for working. Hello, Oakley. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's great
Yeah,
to
well,
be here.
a pleasure. Well, first of all, do you want to present yourself and tell us what did you do exactly in Madrid?
Yeah, so I'm a student at the University of Exeter. I study geography and Spanish, and as part of my year abroad, because I do a language, I have to go to a Spanish-speaking country. And I didn't really want to do studying because I wanted to, I wanted to get into get some experience working. So I decided to do work abroad, and I found a job in Madrid. I was an English teacher basically. So I was going to be a teaching assistant, but then I think one of the teachers dropped out. So then basically I got the job. They were like, it wasn't wasn't an actual teacher. Let's get this right. But yeah, it was like an after school thing where it was kind of we were playing games but speaking English. So there was no Spanish in the classroom at all. And yeah, I was basically just in charge of 8, 9-year-olds, which got intense sometimes, but it was really fun. So yeah, I was an English teacher in Madrid. In Arroyomolinos, which is a town just outside of it. Yeah, and I really enjoyed my experience.
Beautiful. Well, we are going to discover all about it now. My first question is, you are British, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've had Naomi telling us that because she's from the EU, she didn't have much paperwork in a way to do before going to Madrid. But yourself as a British, we know that the British Council as well is sometimes a bit of a nightmare. So was it quite challenging? I can see on your facial expression that it was.
Yeah, I could talk about it for hours, to be honest. It's absolutely a nightmare. The Spanish, they love paperwork. Yeah, so basically, if you have an EU passport, you're 90% of the way there. If you did want to do something like this, it's so easy. But because of Brexit, it's a lot more difficult for people that aren't in the EU. So you have to get a visa or a residence permit. And it's not very helpful online because there's so many different types of visas. There's 90-day visas. There's one for people who are doing remote jobs, students, internship visas. There's so many different things. So luckily I found the job through a website for a company called Spain Internship, and they were trying to tell me to go through to get a residence permit. And that was a very expensive, lengthy process, but they were giving me help over it, whereas the university were telling me something different. They were saying, no, you should go through the embassy and get an internship visa, which would be a lot cheaper. And so I had 2 people telling me to do 2 different things, and it just really complicated. And I decided to go with the Spain internship because they were actually helping me step by step through the process, where the university didn't really. They were just go get the internship one, and they didn't give that much guidance.
When you said the university, is it the foreign language center?
Yeah. So I don't remember what her name was. But
no, don't worry. You don't have to say names of people specifically. But I imagine it's the language center that helps most of you. Because I haven't done my year abroad, so it's the language center that helps.
Yeah, I assume it probably was. Yeah, and they would. Well, because they've got so many students, they can't exactly help every single one. They've got 2 or 3 people, dealing with the year abroad people, so obviously it's very difficult for them to give one-on-one advice.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose to go through the advice of Spain internship. It ended up being really, really expensive. I think it ended up costing me everything that I earned in the summer. So I got a summer job, and I think I must have spent about £2,000 just translating documents, getting them.
£2,000.
Yeah.
For documents.
Yeah, because they have
and
to.
And the government doesn't help.
No, not at all.
What the hell?
Yeah, because you got to get them translated, and then you got to get them apostilled and certified, or whatever. It's a nightmare, to be honest.
My God! Wow. Okay, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Well. Thank you, government, and thank you, Brexit.
Definitely.
One of whatever you've done your paperwork, you've filled up everything. You arrive in Madrid. So September 2022.
Yep.
September 2022.
Yes.
Yeah. As a British, were you already been to Spain? Have you already been to Spain before? Or?
Yeah, so I'd been to Spain like 5 or 6 times before. Never been to Madrid though.
So that's why. Was the cultural kind of a bit of a shock? Did you have some stuff that you were surprised you didn't expect, or you already, as you say, you've already been to Spain 5 or 6 times, so I imagine it must have been that difficult.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like it's still a European country, so there's still a lot of things similar. But there are some sort of things that are quite, different. So, for example, they eat a lot later, and also shops don't open until a lot later. So I know in the UK they open at like 7 a.m., whereas there it would be like 9 a.m., which is still, it's not bad, but it's like sometimes maybe you're waking up at 8:30 and it's like, oh, I can't go buy anything. I've got nothing in the house. And then also at the same time, like, it's getting really late and like I'm getting really hungry at 7 because I'm used to eating at 6:37, but then like no one eats till like 8-9, which I slowly got used to.
Really late.
Yeah, which I slowly got used to over time, but it was a bit of a shock. Like there were a few nights where it's just like very hungry for quite a few hours before I could actually go out and eat.
I can imagine. Well, good that you managed to get used to it, because I know a lot of people sometimes it's quite difficult to adapt to the cultural change. Was it difficult for you, considering you were not in a university, obviously, like in Exeter, you were more in the working environment? Was it difficult for you to make friends and meet people? Because we've heard that there was a lot of stuff about going on, especially with Erasmus student in Madrid. But were you kind of part of that kind of group, or was it a bit more difficult?
Yeah, so it's really important when you do your year abroad to try and make as many friends as possible, just to put yourself in those environments. It's like starting uni for the first time. Like, you want to try and join as many societies and stuff as possible and meet as many people. So I was fortunate that Madrid is like a capital city, so it has so many people, millions of people that you can meet. And there was also I think it's like a website called City Life, and they're in Madrid, and they have a bunch of like group chats, like WhatsApp group chats and stuff, where you can meet a bunch of people. And they also set up a lot of different events, and I think every Friday and Saturday they have like language exchanges. So it'll be at like a bar somewhere in Madrid, and you'd sign up, you'd get your free ticket, and then you'd go, you'd make friends with people, and you'd try and practice your Spanish as well. Because a lot of the people there would be Erasmus students, but there would be people also that are like they're trying to improve their English as well. So maybe they're from like South America or whatever. But it's all kind of like an Erasmus sort of environment. And I was also very lucky that all the teachers that I worked with, they were kind of a similar age. Like, they were all in their 20s. Like, I was the youngest, but they were all like
Oh, that's quite
28.
good. So they were not like mature adults, I would say. Okay, so
No.
that must have helped you a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So we kind of related a lot more. We hung out and stuff. We went on holidays together. And I can consider them my friends, basically.
Oh, beautiful. Well, that's nice to hear. Another thing that you were talking about friends hanging out, and something that obviously we do when we hang out with friends is go to the bar and restaurant. How is the food in Spain? Is it is it something that is it a bit difficult at the beginning, that maybe you don't know some stuff, you have to be, we know that sometimes in some countries you have to be careful when you eat, there's some rules to respect, or the Spanish people pretty chill, they just give you whatever, like how's the vibe in Spain in terms of food? And I know we're not supposed to promote alcohol. Where be careful whenever you drink. Please don't drink too much, and drink respectfully for yourself, especially. But yeah, how's the culture over there about all that? Because we know tapas, of course.
Yeah. Well, the food in Spain is just amazing, to be honest. Quite simply, like, compared to the food in the UK, like even the supermarkets, the quality is a lot higher. And also it's quite a lot cheaper. It's probably not as cheap as it used to be. Spain's gotten, quite expensive, but no more, not as close as expensive as the UK. But yeah, it's amazing. The food, like tapas and stuff like that, it's amazing. Like, it's really good, but it can get a bit repetitive, because at the end of the day, like, you can only have so many like croquetas, patatas bravas and stuff like that, and it's all really oily. And if that's not your thing, maybe you wouldn't really like it. But having it once a month, twice a month, it's really, really good. And then there's also, I was in Madrid. There's so many different like types of food. There's Asian. There's Italian. There's all sorts of types of food. So it's kind of like the UK, as in that like you can eat from many different countries instead of it just being all Spanish food all the time, which
That's good.
would get a bit boring.
That's good. That's good. Well, talk about different types of food. Obviously, when you're in Madrid, you discover about the Spanish culture. But I imagine, did you manage to meet a lot of people from all over the world, or was it mostly locals? You were mentioning the teachers that you had in your school.
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people do when they go on the year abroad is they kind of stay with Erasmus people. So they stay, with their own kind of group, people that speak English and stuff. Whereas I think it's really important to branch out and try to make friends with actual Spanish people, because it will, and also have conversations in Spanish with them, not just speak in English because it's easier. That's something that's really difficult to do at first because you're not really confident.
No, for sure.
But now I can say that like I confidently, if there's a Spanish person next to me, I try and speak in Spanish instead of just speaking English because it's easier.
But did you feel welcomed enough when you were in Madrid by Spanish people? Because we know that sometimes some countries are a bit like they block a little bit. They don't really like the fact that you don't speak their home language. And because how was your level of Spanish actually? That's something I forgot to ask before you arrived in Madrid. Was it all right? You had a good level, or you were quite shy? You had difficulties to interact with them?
I think I had a very good level, but I just didn't have the confidence to speak it, or I didn't speak as fluid, or it didn't come as naturally to me. So I had,
which is fair enough. I know a lot of people are like that.
Yeah, but after just speaking every day in Spanish, making friends with Spanish people, where I just speak in Spanish all the time, like now it's really easy just for me to switch in Spanish and then like speak without thinking about it. That's the main thing, and then just speak really quickly without saying and ahhing, like stuff like that.
Yeah. Fair enough. Nice. How, when you get into Madrid, so you've talked about your working environment. I imagine, you said it was really pleasant. You really enjoyed it. And whether, sorry, it's for studies, working, you have to do activities after, and, you get to discover the city. What is the big thing that, you really enjoy doing in terms of hobby? I would say maybe football. Maybe you managed to play football, I guess, or maybe was there any places you enjoyed, going there a lot, or even just at the end of the day, maybe just hanging out with friends?
Well, there was a lot of different things. There's so many different things to do in Madrid, and what's the most important thing is that the transport, you basically get like a card which is called an abono, and it's €8 a month for unlimited travel on all the buses, all the trains, and that can go like 2 hours outside of Madrid. So you can go to the mountains for free, practically.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did that quite a lot. So I went a lot to the mountains, did hiking and stuff. I really wanted to bring my bike, but it was a bit of a nightmare, like to get it delivered and stuff. So I didn't bother doing that.
Oh, fair enough.
But I think if I go back, I think I'd bring my bike because I love mountain biking. That's one of my hobbies. But yeah, so I'd go hiking in the mountains, and the mountains were just incredible. And then also football as well. So basically there's an app. There's an app that you can download called Celebrate, and it's like pick up football.
What's it called?
Celebrate.
Celebrate. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's just pick up football. So it's 9v9, 18 people sign up for this game. They all meet, and then they all meet in this place that has been booked out, and then you just play for an hour.
Nice.
Yeah.
Without even knowing the people.
Yeah, and you eventually start seeing the same faces, similar faces. And,
yeah.
It's really
It's a good
fun.
way to bond and make friends.
Yeah, definitely, because it's not too competitive. Like, obviously, it's football. Everyone's going to be competitive naturally.
But is it the same vibe a bit as the intramural that we have here next to?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Okay, nice.
They're not like designated teams.
Nice. Well, talk about football. We know how, Spain has a big football culture, especially with probably two of the biggest club in the world, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. Have you been in one of the two stadiums?
So I was fortunate enough to see two Real Madrid games. One was against Valencia, and one was the final game of the season against Athletic Bilbao.
Nice.
where Benzema scored his final goal for Real Madrid,
Wow.
which was it was a penalty, but it's still cool to see like all these legends on the pitch, and the
Nice.
Bernabeu is just insane. It's massive, but what did disappoint me was like the atmosphere.
Really?
I did-
Yeah, that was going to be my question. As an English, you've probably been to stadiums in England. How did it feel to be in a stadium in Spain? Like, how's the vibe? How's the atmosphere between the two countries? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, so obviously you have like the famous kinds of ultras behind the goal,
Yeah.
but because they were doing works on the stadium,
Oh, yeah, that was the year when they were rebuilding Santiago Bernabeu. Yeah,
yeah, so they moved them, and obviously probably the atmosphere is all down there, but the stadium's so big that just having that small group of people, it's not the same. I imagine on a Champions League night, it's probably rocking, but it felt quite touristy, and it
Fair
probably
enough.
would be because it's Real Madrid, it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
best team in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Wow. Impressive, impressive. Well, my other question was if you have to give, one advice in general, to someone, who would go to Madrid, whether for work, as you did, or maybe just, in general, maybe if they go on holiday, what's the best advice that you would give to them, whether over there, when they go there, or even in the preparation? Maybe you mentioned the British Council. What's the best thing that, you would advise them to do?
That's a good question. So I think getting the visa things done as soon as possible is very important because there can be a lot of delays and it's just a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to send off all these documents that are costing you a lot of money and then you having to like resend emails because people just aren't responding. It's just a nightmare. I'm not going to get into it because it's really boring, but yeah, just getting your visa stuff sorted, and then once you're there, just try to immerse yourself in it as much as possible. Do everything. Just do whatever you can because you might not be able to do it again. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity doing a year abroad. Like you could always go back, but most people don't. So make
Yeah,
the
yeah,
most of that year abroad. Don't just spend it in
definitely.
your room.
Do you think you would go back to Madrid?
I'm gonna go back in September.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, yeah, because now you are graduating. So now next year you are going back. Is it the same business or same working
Yeah,
place? Or
because like I didn't want to have to look for jobs not only here in the UK but in Spain during my final year. I just thought it would be easy to have another year out, for example, doing the same thing, and then during that time I can look for jobs and stuff. Whereas I didn't want to do that during my final year when I'm supposed to be focusing on my exams and essays and everything like that.
no, fair enough. And I think you're right. That is something we should talk about. I think quite a lot because I think it's not mentioned enough, or at least I think personally we don't get much help about it. Is trying to balance the stress of the last year, finding jobs for the year after, and I think we're quite young. How old are you?
22.
There you are, 22. I'm 21, and we're both graduating this year. We're just so young yet, and we have so much, ahead of us in life. And I think it's completely fine if we don't have a work or if we're not too sure what we do the year after. So definitely, I think just enjoy your time in
Yeah,
Madrid and
exactly.
hope you have a great fun.
Yeah, thank you.
My last question before we finish is: did you face any challenges during your year abroad? And if yes, how did you overcome? Like, how did you manage to, maybe deal with them, or maybe you didn't manage? It was quite difficult because we know sometimes, especially when you come in a new culture, for some students, it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, it took quite a while to settle in. So I'd say the first 2 months or so, it was a struggle to kind of, make friends, and you're starting from zero. You're so far away from everything that it's very difficult to kind of adapt. But you eventually do. Yeah, so I moved to a place outside of Madrid at first. So I was in Móstoles, which was like on the outskirts. So I'd made friends in like these group chats and stuff, but everything that was going on was happening in the center, and that was like a 40-minute train journey, and the trains finished at midnight. So it was very difficult to actually go into Madrid, make friends, and have those opportunities. So eventually what happened was in January, I moved to the center of Madrid because I just wanted to have the experience. I was thinking, if I'm going to be here for a year, I want to have the best experience possible, even if it's going to cost a few €100 more out of my wage that I'm getting. I'd say that's worth it, and it 100% was, because it immediately improved, how I felt about, my year abroad, and also just being able to, if someone's asked me, do you want to go out tonight? I can say yes, because I'm 10 minutes away, instead of being like an hour away.
That's so ideal.
Yeah.
That's really good, really good. Another thing I just realized now, we know Spain is a very famous country and with a lot of traditions, but also in the same time, we can have a lot of cliche about Spain, whether we live in the UK or in any other countries. With that stuff, you like thought about Spain or Madrid before, and then by arriving there, you're like, oh no, it's actually not like that. Or I don't know, people maybe were like nicer than you thought. Or, was there anything you didn't expect or you were happily, surprised to find out?
Yeah. Well, I always knew that Spanish people were really lovely, because whenever I was growing up and I went to Spain and I tried to speak in Spanish, they'd be like, oh my God, your Spanish is so good. Even just saying hola and stuff like that, like, they're just really receptive and like accepting of.
They seem to be a very friendly,
yeah,
just
just
people,
in general. But what I did find, which was surprising, was the level of English. So I always went to places that maybe were a bit touristy. So the south of Spain, Costa del Sol, places like that. Where their English level is higher because there's a lot of tourists, basically. Whereas when I went to Madrid, I was surprised that not everyone spoke very good English. A lot of people just didn't speak any English at all, which really surprised me, because I always, assumed that Spain was, obviously they have a lot better English level than we do Spanish level, for example, in the UK. But it surprised me that the level wasn't as high as maybe perhaps I had thought, especially with the older generation. A lot of them don't speak any English, whereas probably people our age, they have at least a decent level of understanding. Like they have like B1, B2 sort of level, which is enough.
Well, I guess it must have helped you to kind of force yourself into
Definitely.
speaking Spanish, because so like that, if they don't speak English, at least you have no choice to practice your Spanish.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember the first time that I met someone that didn't speak any English, and I was speaking in Spanish all the time. It was quite scary, because it's like, what if my level's not that good? Like, what if I don't understand what they're saying?
Yeah.
But it was so good, because it meant I was forced to speak in Spanish. I couldn't, default be like, oh, how do you say this in Spanish or whatever? Like, it was like I had to speak in Spanish, basically. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming, Oakley. Unfortunately, we're coming now to an end of the Year Abroad series. Oakley, who went to Madrid, he worked as a teacher. And yeah, it was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias.